Hello, my gorgeous, good looking friends. Thank God we made it. And today was the last Flopcast, hopefully forever, that we'll ever have to go through. Folks, I can't tell you how happy I am that this series is over. I seriously thought the day would never come, as literally it felt like I was having a root canal every Tuesday. The one thing we can count on with Meghan Markle is her consistency with being underwhelming. And today's final podcast was exactly just that. Today's suckers on Archetypes was Andy Cohen and Trevor Noah. This final episode decided to do a complete 180 and feature male guests. Quite frankly, I believe Meghan couldn't get other females to do this podcast, and she went with guests who are known to have been supportive of her in the past. In all seriousness, the only thing that I have learned from this podcast is that Meghan chose specific guests to address certain words that she has been critiqued of in the past. She also used the podcast to settle any type of beef that she may have had within Hollywood. And today was no different. Every aspect of this podcast series was racist, condescending, and quite frankly, ignorant. And not to mention, so incredibly boring. Regarding her choice in guest today, I'm not surprised that Andy went on the show and agreed to do this, but I am shocked that Trevor supported this racist, especially since she insulted and lied about South Africa. The only logical explanation that I could think of is that he did this podcast before Archetypes was released and it was too late. But still, if I were him, I would have backed out and I would have canceled and not be attached to it. But now he is, and unfortunately for me, that just makes me look at him differently because he is supporting someone who has openly lied and manipulated the public for her personal gain. I think it's fair to say that I'm disappointed. Before we go into Trevor's segment, let's talk about Andy Cohen first. For those that don't know who Andy Cohen is, he is the actual creator of the Real Housewives franchise. And he hosts a show here in New York called Watch What Happens Live. And after the show, he brings on the housewives and they have a good time. They drink a little bit. They talk about one another. It's really a fun show. So Meghan proves that she's the jerk that we all know. So when Andy comes in, she greets him and says hello. And he says, nice to meet you. And she immediately gives her fake laugh and says, it's good to see you. I've met you before. You'll never remember it. So Andy, you can tell he's taken aback and he goes, you're kidding. And she goes, would I joke about that? Well, no, Meghan, you don't know how to tell a joke. So she goes in to say, just brace yourself. And he goes, this is going to ruin my day. Like he generally was a little nervous. And she goes, no, it's not. And this woman proceeds to put her dick onto the table to cut this man's achievement down. Right before it, she inserts, and this is edited, a little blurb as to what her thought process is. With her condescending laugh, she goes, I absolutely did not want to ruin Andy Cohen's day. But for this reality TV powerhouse and host of the late night talk show Watch What Happens Live, I did need to set the table a little bit to maybe go down memory lane when we met once upon a time, or shall I say twice upon a time. So she's really pissed off and she's still harboring this grudge that he didn't remember her both times they met because she was so desperately trying to be on his show. This is what this is all about. They go back and forth with bullshit, and then she openly admits and says, I was so eager to be on your show because I was such a Housewives fan at the time, and I just couldn't get booked, Andy. So thanks for being here with me. This wasn't a moment of humility. In fact, there was no point to it. What it was, look at me now. Back then, I was a nobody, and today I'm still a nobody, but you're on my show. Meghan does not have the ability to humble herself, and although she tried to fake who she was growing up, no one believed that she was this loser in high school and was always the smart one. Even more laughable, throughout this series, she attempted to make the audience, or tried to convince the audience, to see her as this frumpy mom drinking wine by the pool as she watches her two invisible children. Right, Meghan. Okay, I digress. Back to Andy. I got the impression that Andy was highly uncomfortable as Meghan wouldn't let go of the fact he didn't remember her, to which he conceded to stroke her ego by saying, Not booking her on the after show, Watch What Happens Live, was the biggest mistake blunder that he made in 13 years. He then proceeded to give her an open invitation to come on the show, which I think was a horrible idea because he might have been kidding, but you know that she's going to take that and she's going to run with it, especially when her reality show comes out. She's going to want to be up in, Watch What Happens Live. And don't think we don't see what she's doing here right now. It's not a coincidence that she has two talk show hosts on her podcast because guess what? Now we have this stupid reality show that's going to be coming up, and I'm sure we're going to see her face over where Trevor is and Andy, especially if she's coming here to New York. Ugh. Keep NYC mega trash free, please. We have enough garbage in this city. We don't need California's. I don't know. I think Andy can spot it because he did sound a bit uncomfortable in the exchange because she kept going on and taking digs actually at Andy. And even though he finds it funny and he was being polite, Megan failed to read the room. Megan, being the snake that she is, passively aggressively took the time to sort of, and I don't know if you've ever heard this term before, and forgive my swearing, but this type of grin F, okay? It's one of those like you're smiling, but you're meaning something else. And what she was actually doing was berating and cutting down Andy's success. So Miss High and Mighty begins to pontificate, talking about Andy's success being based off of a franchise that was built off of women's stereotypes, and then proceeds to name drop by bringing in her bestie Glow, as in Gloria Steinem. Why it wasn't Gloria on this show? Anyhow, in her fake solidarity as a feminist, she plays a clip of where Gloria Steinem is calling the Real Housewives a minstrel show for women. Okay? Now, I think that this was a direct stab and jab at Bethany Frankel because Bethany Frankel had spoken out about her. Now, I would love to have seen Megan bring Bethany on and have a adult conversation, but we all know that she's incapable of doing that because she hasn't matured past being an 11-year-old girl. Now, this was her way of attacking a show that she wanted so desperately, I'm sure, to be a part of. We all know that when she was in Europe, she was trying to be on that Made in Chelsea reality show. I believe it had to do with WAGs, I guess, wives and girlfriends of wealthy, rich, I guess, athletes or something of that. Whatever the case is, she wanted to be a part of it. And there's no doubt that she would have jumped if she didn't marry up to be in the Real Housewives franchise here. Megan's lucky that Andy kept his composure and he handled responding to her with diplomacy and throws in to Markle's face that it's not just table flipping and cursing at one another. And he did say that people actually get something out of the show. Unlike this shit podcast where Megan totally missed the mark on being able to be relatable or connecting with her audience. Andy then proceeded to say that the New York franchise was one of the most feminist shows on TV. I guarantee that that was to support Bethany Frankel, and I'm sure Megan didn't like that. Of course, I'm going to agree with Andy on this one and support the New York Housewife franchise. Those women are really interesting women. It's not a role that they're playing as actresses. They really are interesting women. I mean, think about it. How often do people get to go to fabulous exclusive parties or see the behind the scenes or get to travel to exotic destinations? At the same time, we also see the real struggles that life brings us. And in one way or another, someone on the show resonates with the viewer in some way. Their stories, and might I add, their personalities, are far more interesting than this flopcast. So after Megan had the opportunity to settle the score and show Andy that she's so much better than he is and the women on The Real Housewives, I literally tuned out when Judd Apatow came on. He's some, I think, writer. He actually wrote the script for a series on HBO called Girls. It's another one of those woke coming of age shows. So I tuned him out and then sort of tuned back in when Trevor came on to only notice how hard she had been flirting and hitting on him. There's no doubt that she was staring at him with that intense, crazy Ted Bundy stare. You could tell this because she allowed him to speak an incredible amount. And it was a lot, more than any of the guests that she has had on the show. And this is what these sly bitches do. What she had been doing was making him feel like everything he was saying was like the best thing. And you would think that the two of them saw eye to eye and had so much in common. But no, she was actively trying to get him to think that she understood him and was an equal. No doubt there was a difference in the dynamic, and I will bet this is how she was with Harry. This cougar was sizing 38-year-old Trevor up. Of course, she begins down the path and is asking about the type of father he wants to be. Probably because she's looking for someone to take care of her anchor baby when the day comes that she divorces Harry. She continues to feel Trevor out despite these questions having nothing to do with the purpose of the podcast. She then asks Trevor if he wants to marry one day and poking around on the type of husband he would be. Come on now, we know what she's doing. Trevor Noah is recently single. I liked Minka Kelly. She is so beautiful. Trevor, you made a mistake letting her go. Unfortunately, Minka is now taken as she is confirmed to be dating rocker Dan Reynolds from Imagine Dragons. Trevor, don't fall for this, please. The attempt to relate with Trevor was so cringe. A couple times, Megan had shown her age by one bringing up a movie, Weird Science, a movie that Trevor had no idea what that was about. And then also at the end, bringing up the song Poison by Belle Biv DeVoe.
That girl.
Oh, yes, yes, yes.
Poison.
Right.
Oh, the irony of that song. I will bet that she has been blowing up his phone, probably trying to get herself onto The Daily Show while she's in New York City, using it as an excuse just to see him again. This is how these crazy bitches operate. Anyhow, Megan then proceeds to close out this stupid series with the most tone deaf and hypocritical shite. I'll spare you the pain, as it's all word salad, demonstrating she didn't learn a thing or helped anyone else, but helping herself. So, closing out, these are my final thoughts on this stupid series. Our swipes, there's really 12 moments of missed opportunity for her to shut her mouth and really listen. At times, it was angering, nauseating, and super boring, as well as irrelevant and out of date. While Megan thinks she cranked out gold, the reality is she cranked out nothing short of hazardous waste. Now she mentions that she doesn't know if the audience took away the same gold that she did, but it doesn't matter. She alludes to and reminds us that the audience doesn't matter because it's about her experience, and that's what really matters and what's important. She wants everyone to know that she felt seen. Just shut up, Megan. Just shut the F up. Unfortunately, this woman has wasted so much. Not only did she waste Spotify's money, but she wasted so many people's time and efforts, such as the crew, the guests, even her listeners, myself, who did this to point out her hypocrisy and manipulation, because she's a known proven liar and has definitely taken a couple years off of many people. This woman did not listen. She did not learn anything. Instead, what she did was gaslight, exploited women minorities, insulted many cultures, and put down her guests to lift herself up. How can anybody say that this podcast had been a success? I just don't see it. This podcast series solidified that Spotify made a grave mistake in backing this racist. Meghan Markle does not represent women of color, and she needs to stop insulting our intelligence, our capabilities, and stay away from our children. This cancer to society has demonstrated her malicious intentions and should not be able to abuse her public platform in this manner. The only thing that really has shown me and has come out of this podcast, it shows me what a real B word, diva, bimbo, slut, angry, crazy woman looks like. And that looks like Meghan Markle. And I think that this series has created this new archetype. Put all those words together, and you have the archetype of a super horrible person or a Meghan Markle. So, any actors or actresses out there, you need to play a super horrible person, channel your inner Meghan Markle, because that's what you'll get. Oh, wait, I almost forgot to tell you that our Duchess had to leave us on one final note with some pearls of wisdom and a quote that she had taken from a poet and practically claiming it as her own, in which it says, "What didn't you do to bury me? But you forgot that I was a seed." My only response to that is, I am so sorry that the palace ran out of weed killer, because I guarantee you many of us would have shipped over a ton of weed begone. And for all those wokies out there listening to this, including you, Meghan Markle, that was a joke, all right? We all know how these people like to start something out of nothing, so shut up. Anyhow, what do you think? I can't say I'm surprised that this bombed so badly, but I will be surprised if this is given a second season and she gets more opportunity. At that point, I'll probably assume that Duchess Nasty is going back to her old tricks, if you know what I mean. Anyhow, look out for old mattresses outside of Montecito and a possible spot on the next Real Housewives. Thank God this is over, and thank you for suffering through this with me. It's getting to laugh with my viewers that's making this less painful, so thank you, everyone. And on that note, you know I'll be back with more content. Don't forget to subscribe and click the notification bell. Be safe, everyone, and I'll see you later. Bye.
I was such a fraud.